I can tell you with complete certainty that love isn't going to be enough to save your relationship. Intimacy requires so much more than I love you. There are countless relationships out there with partners who say they love each other, and yet the way one or both of them is intentionally or unintentionally showing up will only lead to the death of that relationship. Saying I love you isn't enough. Love isn't simply a feeling. It's an action. It takes effort and intentionality and sacrifice. Frankly, I don't even care that you love someone. Anyone with a pulse and a brain can fall in love, but it takes a lot more than words or feelings to stay in love, doesn't it? You want to set your relationship up for success? Then watch this video with your partner and ask them, what do you agree or disagree with? I don't care if you agree with my definition of love. The important thing is that you both agree how you believe love should be demonstrated in a relationship. Because far too often, we don't have those conversations because we're too scared or our partner isn't even safe enough to have difficult conversations with. But that doesn't mean that our needs and expectations go away in that silence or avoidance. We still become resentful and distant and hurt when they don't show up for us in the way we're showing up for them, right? And that makes sense. I would be frustrated too. I'm a firm believer that relationships only work when two people are putting in the work. So that begs the question, what is the work? That's what this video is about. The work is humility. Love is humble. That means I don't think I'm better than anyone else. Love is empathetic. Remember, this is someone you say you love. Let's act like it. Seek to understand their feelings. A correct understanding of feelings isn't going to push you farther apart. It's going to bring you closer together and strengthen your bond because they will consider you someone that they can turn to when they're hurt, and that's what you want. The work is sacrifice and selflessness. What is love if it's not sacrificing for those we care about, right? Love is about protecting this relationship. And there's a lot of men that understand provide and protect. And yes, that's very loving of you, but we miss the mark when we don't finish the task. Providing and protecting doesn't just mean a paycheck and ammo in the house. You are much more valuable than that. It means meeting someone's emotional needs. It means connecting with another person on a heart level where you decided, I want to be a safe place for you, not just physically, but emotionally as well. And we'll talk about more what that looks like in just a minute. Loving someone means accepting their influence, as Dr. John Gottman would say. That means if they tell us something, even if we don't agree with it initially, we love them enough to give them the benefit of the doubt and at least consider maybe there's some truth here. Maybe this isn't criticism that I need to dismiss or defend and call them crazy. Maybe this is constructive feedback that can help me. I'm not saying that's always true. I'm saying let's not default to that's stupid. Let's default to, tell me more. Why would we do that? Because this is someone we're supposed to trust. And if you trust someone and they give you feedback, you should listen, right? And for someone who's about to comment, well, that won't work with narcissists, you're 100% right. None of this will work with a narcissist because narcissists have no interest in or capability of actual love. All they care about is control and manipulation. They aren't doing anything out of love. Even if they treat you right, they're only doing that so it will benefit them later somehow. So you're absolutely right. This stuff doesn't work with narcissists because narcissists aren't interested in love. Because love is about mutual respect and equality, right? You can't tell me you love someone, but you're putting them in unsafe environments. Don't tell me you love someone, but you look down your nose at them, or you treat them like they're inferior, or you disrespect them as a person, or you dominate over them. That's not an equal partnership. And in a loving romantic relationship, you're meant to be equals. And we both need to admit out loud to our partner that your perspective and your opinions and your needs and feelings and desires and dreams are just as important as mine. Have you ever told them that? Because you need to. There is no room for calling them names, calling them stupid, mocking them, making fun of them, telling them how needy they are, or telling them how irrational their feelings are. The truth is, the only reason that we would ever say that is because we believe we're right and they're wrong. I mean, let's just think about it. We say, you're being too sensitive. But who made us the judge of what too sensitive is? Well, we did, right? We know best, and they're just being immature. We don't see their perspective as equal. We see it as inferior and irrational. We feel justified to tell them that they're wrong. And that's the perfect way to destroy all the connection with someone and push them out of your life while still maintaining a narrative in your head that you've always loved them. And during part of this video, you're both probably going to think to yourself, uh-oh, I've done some of those things to my partner. What am I supposed to do now? You apologize. Love apologizes. Love takes accountability and responsibility. Love gets curious about how your behavior has impacted them. And then you say, I'm so sorry. How can I repair this? None of this has anything to do with perfection. Love isn't about perfection, it's about direction. We all mess up. We all make mistakes. We all have areas where we need to mature in. The difference is mature people take accountability for messing up, and they care about and acknowledge and validate the impact their actions had on their partner. Immature people avoid the subject altogether or blame someone else, including you, for their own hurtful behaviors. Which one do you think love requires of us? If you forget everything else from this video, just remember this. Love considers. I can solve all your relationship problems with one concept. Consider each other deeply and intentionally. Place their needs for safety and love and connection and closeness on par with yours and sometimes above. And you'll say, but Jimmy, that will just lead to me being taken advantage of. Not if they're doing the same thing. Not if you're in a loving, reciprocal relationship. Hard to take advantage of someone while you're serving them, and vice versa. And I get it, most of us aren't in a reciprocal relationship, but that doesn't change the fact that it's necessary, right? I mean, let's just be honest. If you're not in a reciprocal relationship, then you know the pain associated with that, don't you? You know the loneliness, you know the frustration, you know the emotional disconnection. You understand the bitterness and the resentment, and you've tried everything. You've asked, you've begged, you've tried to find the right words, but they just aren't willing to show up in the same way that you are. And that proves the point. This doesn't work unless both of you are putting in the work. Love and self-centeredness don't mix, right? You won't feel close or connected to someone who only thinks about themselves, and you won't feel safe with someone who doesn't care to prioritize you. And I'm not saying that we need to view this person as more important than we are. I'm simply saying that when someone only tends to think about themselves and doesn't actively consider their partner's needs, wants, and desires, that relationship will fall apart because that's the only outcome. Here's another way we consider them. Do you care about their boundaries? Do you care about their limits, their guardrails, their non-negotiables? Do you know about their sexual boundaries? Because love doesn't coerce or pressure, right? Love wants to know where they feel overextended and burdened. Love wants to know their boundaries around conflict. Have you ever asked, and do they even consider you a safe person to tell that to? I know so often we don't think about this kind of stuff, but let's just ask ourselves, if loving someone means caring, how can we care about someone if we don't even know them? We have millions of people out there who say they love their partner, but when we ask their partner if they feel valued and loved and prioritized, they say no. And sure, we can just blame the partner for being the type of person who wouldn't be satisfied in any scenario. That's possible, but it's also possible that we have millions of people who aren't serving their partner, who aren't considering their partner, or they are serving them, but only in ways that they want to. It's not actually filling their partner's love tank. Once again, the whole thing breaks down if you're only thinking about yourself. You don't have to buy into the science of love languages to understand the concept. We all feel loved and valued in different ways. Love says, I want to know your ways. I want to fill your love tank. I want to make deposits into your emotional bank account instead of withdrawals. And then we ask them, what helps you feel prioritized specifically? What helps you feel valued and desired? And then we serve them in those areas consistently. We check in weekly and we ask the hard questions. Did you feel connected this week? What did we get right? What are some things that we need to improve upon? What's something that you're excited about? What's an area that I can support you next week? Were there any feelings that you were afraid to share with me? Don't tell me you love someone, but you refuse to ask those questions because there's something else there that we need to explore. There's some fear or shame or maybe laziness. All of those can destroy a relationship. We can be so afraid to start a conflict that we stay quiet and silently hate them over time until we eventually leave, right? That didn't solve anything. Or we can feel so much shame that we always think we're the problem and we keep our mouths shut out of fear of saying the wrong thing or being used against us. But in doing so, we're never actually vulnerable with our partner, and they consistently complain that we're cold or distant till they eventually leave. Or we can get so complacent and lazy, we don't prioritize the relationship like we did back when we were dating because we think that stage is over. It's not. And I get it. You're saying, but Jimmy, life is so stressful and kids are so stressful. My job is so demanding. I get that. And there's something to be said for working hard and raising a family. But I'm just warning you, if you're putting in a lot of effort and intentionality into your job and kids, but your partner feels chronically neglected because you're only giving them your leftovers, you're going to have a lot more time on your hands soon because you won't have a relationship to worry about. At the end of people's lives, they finally come to the realization that the most important thing in their life was their most important relationships. Do me a favor and your future self a favor and invest in yours today. I promise it will pay more dividends than your 401k. We would never neglect our job and expect to see results, but we constantly think we can put our relationship on autopilot and it's just going to be fine. I can tell you from personal experience, when you get lazy for long enough, the plane crashes. So we have to learn how to communicate. Love communicates, right? But communication alone isn't the goal. Comprehension is, understanding is, validation is, and connection is. We love each other by being respectful and vulnerable in our communication. We honor each other in the way we express our feelings or concerns or hurts or desires without criticism or blame or shame, and also how we receive those moments with validation and empathy and understanding from our partner. That's the goal. Most of us didn't grow up in safe environments where communication and listening and empathy were taught. So many of us suffer from some trauma, and that makes communication really difficult and triggering for us. But here's what I know. What happened to us wasn't our fault, but healing from it and learning how to not get triggered every time our partner brings up a concern or hurt is our responsibility. It's not optional. We can't say, on one hand, we want a mutually fulfilling, mutually respectful relationship where there's intimacy and trust and connection and passion, but on the other hand, we're not willing to put in the work to achieve or maintain those in a relationship. And I'm not going to be able to go into everything that's required for communicating. I've got some other videos on conflict, so go check those out if you want to do a deep dive on that. The point I'm trying to make is that love creates a safe place for honesty and vulnerability to show up. To love someone means to invite and encourage them to be honest about their inner world. I'm not saying we should complain all the time about our partner. Dr. John Gottman says our ratio still needs to be 15-1. That means on average, we should be trying our hardest to fill our time together with appreciation and affection and admiration and compliments and gratitude and smiles and hugs and laughs. But that doesn't mean the goal is to never complain. Complaints and sharing concerns or hurts is actually vital to the health of your relationship. That's what builds the most trust, because we're always asking ourselves, can I go to this person when I'm hurt? Do they care about my inner world? Love establishes a climate of emotional safety. That means I can hold space for your pain. I can lean in when you're hurt. I can ask questions and clarify and repeat back your experience because I'm listening and you matter to me. And of course it matters how they bring something up and express an actual feeling. Not, I feel like you're a jerk, or I feel like you're a selfish narcissist. Not, I feel like all this is my responsibility. You're so lazy. Those aren't feelings. I'm saying if they brought up an actual feeling, like when I'm left to clean the kitchen every night, like I've done this week, I feel rejected. I feel overlooked. I feel frustrated. How do we respond in those moments? Because love listens and gets curious. Love tries to understand their perspective before blurting out our own. This isn't about agreeing with their accusations. That's why I said the way they bring things up is still vital. But far too often, from what I've seen, even if our partner brings up a negative feeling respectfully and vulnerably, it's so easy to get triggered and see it as an attack, right? So we defend, we push back, we interrupt, we escalate. Hey, I'm not the bad girl. I'm not the bad guy here. I do all this other stuff. Why are you nagging me about the kitchen? We end up telling them that they're too sensitive or they shouldn't feel that way, which only makes them feel more abandoned and rejected than when they started the conversation. And it makes them less likely to bring things up in the future, which doesn't strengthen our bond over time. It actually destroys it. To truly love someone means to invite and encourage them to share their inner world, including their hurts and desires and needs, without dismissing, mocking, or neglecting them. Don't tell me you love someone and that you care deeply about them, but you don't even care to know them on a deep, intimate level. And don't tell me you want to be loved, but you refuse to share your inner world with someone. I get it, you're terrified of being vulnerable. Me too. But this whole thing comes crashing down when we refuse to be vulnerable or when someone punishes our vulnerability. Anyone can feel close and connected during the good times, but it's actually possible to feel close and connected during the rough times as well. But only if you've both established a history of trust and respect and consideration together. At the end of the day, loving someone means building commitment and trust with them. And trust and commitment aren't simply not cheating on your partner. You can stay with the same person for decades and never cheat, but still break trust in 100 smaller ways. Building trust means consistently showing up and following through, and that my partner feels like they can rely on me. They can trust that I'll be there for them when they need me. I won't push them away when they try to get close, and I won't punish their vulnerability. That doesn't mean losing our autonomy, guys, or our independence. This doesn't mean accepting everything about our partner. This doesn't mean abandoning your own needs and boundaries either. It means we are building something together. We are prioritizing and protecting our bond together. But in order to do that, We need safety in the relationship. We need mutual respect. We need to communicate. We need consistency and intentionality. Commitment doesn't simply mean staying with someone. Plenty of people stay together in miserable, unhealthy, unfulfilling relationships. That's not love. I want real commitment from both of you. That means intentionally growing and deepening our relationship together. I'm not saying that relationships are supposed to be this thing that require a massive amount of work to sustain. I'm saying anything worthwhile requires effort and sacrifice, right? You trained for that marathon. You rebuilt that car. You studied for that degree or license. You started at the gym. You saved money for retirement. Did that take discipline? Did that take effort and sacrifice consistently? Absolutely it did. And most of you would say it was worth the sacrifice, right? Your relationship is the same way. Now, we don't have the same passion for our relationship work as we do those other things. We don't sacrifice for our relationship like we do in the gym or for our job or even our kids. But make no mistake, your relationship is one of the most important aspects of your life. And I just want all of us to take this seriously because it's not a given. We aren't supposed to get complacent. You can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have a meaningful relationship in your life because of your own self-centeredness and pride and arrogance, you will eventually be miserable. You can have six-pack abs, you can have all the status, you can drive the best cars, but when you go to bed at night and there's no one beside you because no one can stand you, you won't feel important anymore. And the worst thing about it is deep down, I know you're just a scared little boy or a little girl trying to protect yourself from pain and prove your worth and value through all this external validation. That's why you've built up all these walls. That's why you pretend not to care about connection and closeness with someone. You keep all things superficial, right? You hop from one relationship to the next. Why? Because if you actually let someone in, if they actually knew you, if you gave them access to your heart, you're afraid they would hurt you. You're afraid they would see behind the mask that you've so cleverly built up. So you protect yourself with walls and ego and work. But eventually it will all catch up to you. Maybe not now, but eventually you're going to realize you've pushed everyone out of your life. Now, for so many of you, you default to the opposite. Your issue isn't self-centeredness, it's selflessness and low self-esteem. And we feel like we need to earn love and sacrifice and serve for other people to feel worthy and valuable. And that's the other side of a toxic coin. That's not loving yourself. You're so focused on being chosen, you're so focused on giving and sacrificing for others so they will like you and hopefully reciprocate, that you've abandoned what you need to feel loved and valued. But that doesn't work either, does it? The reason that doesn't work is because if we have low self-esteem and deep down we don't actually believe that we're worthy to be served and sacrificed for, we will naturally attract narcissists in our life. And tragically, they will fill that narrative that we've already mentally established that people that love us take advantage of us. And even if we hate that about them, it's actually what feels most familiar to us. So having said all that, my only point is it's imperative that we know deep in our soul what we deserve in relationships. Be firm on your legitimate needs. You're not needy for needing respect. You're not needy for needing consistency and intentional love and the bare minimum of reciprocation. Because love means mutually sacrificing and serving each other. It's not about perfectly reciprocating, but love cares whether our partner feels like the effort they're putting in is being reciprocated or not. I believe love is intentionally looking for ways to serve our partner. And in order to do that, we have to first know our partner. We have to know what fills their love tank and then intentionally do those things. Part of loving someone else is exploring and understanding their insecurities and triggers and traumas just as we understand our own. That doesn't mean excuse toxic and hurtful behavior. It simply means while we're setting up healthy boundaries, we can also be compassionate and empathetic to what they experience during conflict. For instance, some people, when they're triggered, they yell to be heard, or they get really passive aggressive, whereas other people will shut down and get real quiet. Maybe they shame spiral and say, I'll never be good enough, you should just leave me and be with someone else. Am I saying that that's healthy? No. Am I saying we should tolerate yelling or shutting down? Not necessarily. I'm saying that when we love someone, we can have compassion for our partner's triggers while still having healthy boundaries around harmful behavior. That would look like this. Hey, the more I learn about this stuff, it seems like when we get into conflict, you have a tendency to shut down. My guess is that you're feeling very overwhelmed. You probably feel unfairly blamed. You think whatever you say is just going to make things worse, or it's going to get used against you. That makes sense, given your past. But it also triggers me, and it makes me feel this massive amount of abandonment from you. Can we please figure out a new way to do this together? Because I certainly don't want you to feel blamed, but I also need you to be a safe person for me to express my feelings vulnerably and respectfully to. And on the other side, love from that person would sound like this. I'm so sorry. I can completely see how when I shut down, it triggers those deep fears of abandonment in you. And you start yelling because you're desperate to get my attention. You're desperate to be seen and heard in this relationship. And that makes sense. Let's learn a new way to do this together because I love you more than any conflict that we have. And then we forgive them. That's love. When someone takes accountability and says they're sorry, we forgive them. That doesn't mean that we tolerate repeated infractions. Of course, I believe that the best apology is a changed behavior. And 100%, there are people out there that say they're sorry, but they never plan on changing, and they're only going to manipulate you. But we also have to acknowledge that in a healthy, loving relationship, there's a heck of a lot of forgiveness too, right? I mean, what's the opposite? Holding on to grudges, keeping score? How's that working? That also doesn't work, right? Because it makes you miserable. You become bitter and resentful and distant. And that makes sense because no one feels close or connected or safe with someone who is intentionally or unintentionally continuing to hurt them. And it's still true that love forgives each other, just as love works hard to not hurt our partner anymore. And my hope for this video isn't to make you feel shame or make you feel hopeless that you're just going to mess this up. We all mess this up. No one loves perfectly. But you can love intentionally. You can work towards growth and maturity and depth. You can practice self-love and self-compassion. You can practice self-reflection and emotional intelligence. You can learn how to express yourself vulnerably. You can learn how to set healthy boundaries and advocate for your needs respectfully. We can all make an effort to challenge the way we've been showing up in our relationships and make appropriate changes. And I know that any step in the right direction of loving yourself or loving your partner more intentionally is going to make your relationship and your life better overall. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you in the next one.